All right, y'all, we're talking about another FAQ today, frequently asked question. We're talking about why breath work. Okay. The fact of the matter is, you and I are terrible at slowing down. We are bad at dropping into a state of rest and digest. As we begin to practice an exercise like the breath and prayer exercise, we begin to become aware of how challenging it is even to allow ourselves to slow down for that 10 minutes, to become mindfully present. It's a muscle that we don't practice very often in our life. And porn or masturbation and using have only added to that inclination. Don't stop, don't pay attention, keep going. And so breath becomes an essential part of development of emotional resilience, of learning to slow down, to become regulated. So, breathwork helps us drop from a state of fight or flight, this sympathetic nervous system activation, to parasympathetic nervous system activation, or rest and digest. And we need to become aware, especially in the first phase of our process, of these two states and learn how to more quickly get into particularly the state of rest and digest, right? And that's really difficult to do, to start practicing that the first day you show up to play the game. What do I mean by that? The first time you experience a craving coming into this program and process, and then you try to work it there. It's far easier if you start practicing it when you're more regulated, when you're more calm, right? When you're doing pretty well, so that when you aren't, it'll be more likely that you'll have the motivation, some of the experience, some of the learned ability to be able to go there and to drop into that state, right? So practice like you play and vice versa. The reason why we do this on a daily basis when it doesn't matter, so that it's more likely that we will breathe reflexively when it does matter, right? Many of you have heard me or somebody on our team say that it's nearly impossible to control an overwhelmed mind or brain with the mind. It's nearly impossible to control an overwhelmed mind with the mind, right? When we are in a state of overwhelm, whatever that core emotional trigger or triggers is that we're learning to identify, it's nearly impossible, especially early on when it's really intense on a scale of 1 to 10, and it comes very strong. It's nearly impossible in those moments to simply control that experience with our mind, think through it, because we're not thinking much anymore. This emotional cortex has been activated such that the appraisal cortex is nearly completely shut off. So you can't oftentimes think through it. So the breath becomes essential. Your diaphragm communicates to your brain to tell how fast your heart should beat, and vice versa. There's this feedback loop. And so, as I control my diaphragm as a reflexive reaction to noticing myself becoming overwhelmed, stressed out, anxious, avoidant, whatever it is that I become aware of, I start to breathe and I start to communicate, drop in a state of rest. We got this, right? And I don't have to think all that thoughts. I just start breathing and my breath helps do that for me. So practicing the breath and prayer exercise will prepare you for the moments when it matters so that you can do it reflexively. And this has become honestly a reflexive part of my own life. When I start to become dysregulated, when I start to become overwhelmed, I start breathing more deeply. I lean back in my chair. I start to allow myself space and time just to reconnect, to reset emotionally, internally, allow myself to feel for a moment, for a few seconds is really all it takes. This physiological side that we'll talk about in a few weeks, or that we've already talked about, depending on where you are in the process, is 3 seconds in, one more second in, and this long exhale out. This is the same breath exercise that Navy SEALs and special ops train to fall asleep on the front lines of battle. Some of the most crazy places on earth where you need to be in a state of fight or flight in order for your survival. but they need to fall asleep in those places so that they can show up and operate the next day, right? They know that you can't live in a constant state of fight or flight. You need to have rest so that you can live there when it's necessary. Same goes for us. You can't walk around in a state of fight or flight, and so many of us do. And then we find ourselves hitting a wall and acting out in illegitimate ways to get us some rest, get us some peace, to get us some regulation, to get us some pleasure, right? And that's what we're trying to unwork. And so this breath allows us to begin to give us ourselves another bodily tool that isn't our penis to be able to find that state of rest.